John, you know what it's like to be freed from prison. This is Ted Rall. That's John Kiriakou. And Mahmoud Khalil is out of his ICE detention facility. We'll be talking about that. Obviously, the ongoing crisis between Israel and Iran. I mean, I guess you could call it a war at this point as it enters its second week. Trump is threatening to fire the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board.
Which he can't do, by the way.
That's my take as well. I don't think he can do that. Trump's got a 2-week deadline on what he's going to do there. And Harvard scores a court win. They're going to be allowed to have foreign students, but is it a Pyrrhic victory for Harvard? So right. We'll talk a little bit about that. So what do you want to talk about first, John? Oh, by the way, this is DeProgram. You're about to be deprogrammed. Please follow, share.
That's right. Please like and share. That's right. And what's the other one? Subscribe and share. Thank you. Let's talk about Mahmoud Khalil first, just because there was such a spirited conversation in the comments before we started the show. And thanks, guys. Adrian Dittman and Nick Otto. Appreciate you laying things out like that. This is a very interesting conversation. So first of all, Mahmoud Khalil is the Columbia University grad student who was snatched up by ICE 3 months ago and placed in a detention facility in Louisiana, of all places. His attorneys, of course, took to the courts, and it was a kind of a slow process, but he won, and he was released yesterday and headed back to New York.
Which, by the way, I just want to say parenthetically, really highlights the importance of jurisdiction. You talk a lot about this, in particularly related to the Northern Virginia federal court, district court, that's constantly used by the government to charge political dissidents like Julian Assange. This court, the government wanted to move the case to Louisiana, to New Orleans. It got Khalil's lawyers got it moved not to New York City where they wanted it, to the Southern District of New York, but right across the river over in Newark. And that made the difference. I mean, that was conventional wisdom. And the Newark judge is very slow and methodical, but ultimately ruled in Khalil's favor.
Yeah. So Adrian's got a question. He's wondering what it means to have the highest security clearance in a Western embassy like Mahmoud Khalil. I don't think that he did. What I saw at The Guardian, and there was a smaller piece in the Times of London from around the same time 3 months ago, was that he was very heavily vetted for a job at the British Embassy in Beirut.
We should talk a little bit about that, right? Back. So Mr. Khalil is 30 years old, or he'll be 30 later this year. But this is the year he turns 30. He's Palestinian extraction, born in a refugee camp in Syria. His parent, he and his family moved to get away from the Syrian civil conflict and moved to Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, where they lived for a long time. And he got a he went to college there, right, and got a job after college at the British Embassy in Beirut. And now there's been a spirited chat in the YouTube chat for well over an hour before we went on the air.
Thanks for that, guys.
Concerning the question of whether Khalil is secretly an MI6 asset or agent who transferred weapons to, I don't know whom, but anyway, so anyway, I'm sorry.
Well, let me talk for a minute then about my own experience with what we call TCN's third country nationals at American embassies around the world. Embassies in general, British embassies, American embassies in particular, because they're so large, simply could not function without local hires, third country nationals. Now, those third country nationals also have to have security clearances. And so they're not going to get the highest level security clearances. They're not going to get top secret, for example, or what's called SITK gamma, special intelligence talent keyhole gamma compartments. But they will get the same secret security clearances that any American would get who's working in a sensitive area. So look at it this way. I'm going to use the American Embassy in Bahrain as an example. You've got the political section. The political section has, a couple of guys in it who are foreign service officers. They are cleared up to SITK Gamma. Then you've got the political assistant, who's a local hire. In Bahrain, ours was a Palestinian woman, and she was given a secret clearance so that we could have conversations with her, but not about the most sensitive stuff. Like, I could go to a lunch and a source would whisper to me, hey, there's going to be a big demonstration on, Thursday in front of the Royal Palace. And I'd say, hey, have you heard anything about this demonstration in front of the Royal Palace? And she would say, oh, yeah, here's what I heard. Well, that's a classified conversation, but it's not so sensitive as to jeopardize the security of the United States. So people like that would get secret security clearances. In the administrative section of the embassy, which had by far the largest foreign staff, they were all cleared because, look, John arrives in Athens. John's assigned to a certain section in the embassy that everybody knows is not what it says it is, because word has leaked out over the years. And so John goes down to the second floor and tells, Michalis, hey, Michali, I need a house for my family. Well, Michali knows I'm CIA, even though nobody's actually saying it. And so he goes out and gets me a house. He signs the lease for me, and then he whispers to the Greek intelligence service, this new guy, this Greek-American guy, he's actually CIA. And the service says, thank you. Yes, we already know he's declared to us, but keep up the good work. Well, you have to assume that everybody in the embassy is working for another power, whether it's the local service, and it probably is the local service, or a hostile power, the Russians, the Chinese, the Israelis, the Iranians, the Cubans, the North Koreans, somebody. Right? People have weaknesses. The weakness is usually money, and that's how they get paid. But anyway, to make a long story short, most of those people do have clearances, but they're not at the highest level. Speaking about Mahmoud Khalil, is that right? Yes, Mahmoud Khalil. He was very young at the time. He was probably 22 or 23 at the time that he worked at the embassy in.
Yeah, that's right.
In Beirut. Now, I'm going to speculate here. When there is a foreign intelligence station in a country, let's say Beirut as an example, the station chief is going to have a driver, and the station is going to have what's called an expediter. So if John is visiting from headquarters and I land in Beirut at the middle of the night, my colleagues aren't going to be there in the middle of the night to make sure that my luggage arrived. The expediter is going to be there. He's a Lebanese national or a Palestinian or a Syrian, but he works for the CIA, and he knows he works for the CIA. He's been brought to Langley for training. He went to the farm for a little bit more training, but he's still a third country national, and he still has only that secret security clearance. And I strongly suspect
he picks you up at the airport. He spirits you through the passport control and customs quickly. You maybe takes you into the VIP lounge if there is one, and then you're on your way. He drives you, makes sure you get there, and all
exactly.
That. So
and Adrian,
to you, what a fixer was.
Yeah, he's a fixer. Exactly. And Adrian makes a very, very important point here that I want to reiterate. I think for someone in Mahmoud's position, it is a dream to work in an embassy. So if he didn't engage directly in the conflict, I can't blame him. It indeed is a dream to work in an American embassy. There was a guy who worked in the American embassy in Bahrain when I was there. His name was Asghar. Asghar was a sweet guy, but he was from Zanzibar, right? Zanzibar is not a country anymore.
Right.
He had been working at the American embassy in Bahrain for 30 years. And over the course of that 30 years, his country just ceased to exist. Well, he's not Bahraini.
It's like that movie with Tom Hanks, Terminal. Similar happens.
Yeah. He's not Bahraini, so he can't stay in Bahrain. So on his last day in his job, we had a big party for him. And everybody in the embassy was invited. And the ambassador came down and to thank him for 30 years of dedicated service, the ambassador gave him American citizenship. which of course had been in the works for months because we knew Oscar was retiring soon. But that really is what the goal is. The ambassador's driver, Wahid. I liked Wahid a lot. Wahid was another guy, did 25 years, and at the end of it, got a green card, moved to Portland, Oregon, and lived happily ever after. So that's what these guys are after. If you are so lucky to get a job at an American embassy or a British embassy, man, you want to keep that job for life. Because
John, my father-in-law, who passed a few years ago, he same thing, Taiwanese. His first job out of college, very smart, bright young man, U.S. Embassy in Taipei. He worked hard. They liked him. They gave him a green card. He emigrated to the United States, saved money, brought his wife and kids over. That's a very common thing. And I understand the concern, that like obviously we want movement representatives to be as pure as possible. We've spoken offline about other people who are not as pure as we would like them to be, and that's a problem because it's used by the enemies of the movement. But I think in this case, I don't think there's any there, right? I mean, it's like
I agree. This is people who are upset that his lawyers won this thing so far, and I think they're probably trying to smear him. Somebody asked a moment ago about Israeli. Eric, how many Israeli double agents are in the CIA? As Shakespeare said, "Aye, there's the rub." That indeed is the question, and that is why you have to have very robust counterintelligence. And your investigators have to be very, very good. Now, if these third country nationals are working for the CIA station in an overseas embassy, whether it's as a driver or a fixer or whatever, they're going to get polygraphed. They're going to go through the same security that a CIA employee would go through. They don't get the highest clearance, but by God, they are vetted from here to eternity.
That makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. So in this case, usually I do believe in Occam's razor, right? Usually things are pretty much what they look like. In this case, it looks like a young man got a job out of college. He was bright and got a job at the embassy and at the British embassy, and that's it. Now, look, anything's possible. So if anything that's possible turns out to be true, we'll talk about it here. But right now, there's just no there. I mean, we don't have any. I don't know Mahmoud Khalil from Adam. I have no loyalty to him whatsoever. I just care about the Palestinian cause a lot, and I want peace in the Middle East. So let's talk a little bit about the policy implications of this decision. I mean, look, it didn't escape notice. We were just talking about how Saturday is a traditional news dump day in Washington, because Washington still believes that print newspapers matter. And back in the days of print newspapers, when the government needed to do something or release news that they wanted to be able to say that they had dutifully released, but have as few people as possible react to it, they dump it in a Friday afternoon so that it would end up in the tiny, thin, ad-free Saturday edition of the Washington Post and other newspapers. That's not true anymore. Saturday is actually a major day on the internet for news. And we're taking advantage of that because, there's still a legacy media mindset, and we kind of have this time space to ourselves, John. But
which is funny.
It still doesn't escape me that this old judge freed Mahmoud Khalil yesterday on the day that they assumed would get the least possible play. It also, Donald Trump hasn't had much to say about it, but it's worth noting that all of the college students, including the Turkish lady from Tufts and all these other people who basically got busted for being part of the Palestinian campus protests a year or two ago, they're all out. They're all out. And Khalil was the least. He spent over 100 days. He missed the birth of his first child. It's pretty gross what they did to him. Yeah. And I guess when I was kind of thinking about this before it happened, and I thought, well, when the judge ruled, Trump's in between a rock and a hard place. If he disobeys the judge, there's all sorts of problems legally for the administration, and they can face charges but on the other hand, if they comply, they look weak. And Trump hates to look weak. He looks weak. They release him.
Yeah,
I mean,
he
he did
does.
the right thing. I want to give the president credit for that. He let it happen finally, 100 days late. But what's the political fallout here?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Ted. I think this does make Trump look weak, and there's probably nothing in the world that he hates more than looking weak. But he also knew that he was going to have 4 years of lawsuits, just like he had 4 previous years of lawsuits. And in a way, he kind of wins in that we're seeing reports today, I mean, as recently as this morning, that this awful ICE facility in Louisiana, which is run by a private prison company, I think it's Geo, is not giving prisoners necessary medications, is not giving prisoners human grade food. They're being fed animal grade food. Yep. And all the most horrible things we've heard about prisons are happening every day at this terrible place in Louisiana. And I think that Trump actually wants to be sued over this so he can just say, screw all of you people. They're just prisoners. They'll get what I say they get. Mahmoud Khalil, actually, this is a question I have for you, Ted, and several people have asked it in the chat. This is just bail, right? These deportation proceedings are still pending against him.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the judge should have said, in the interest of justice, given everything that he's already been through, and given the administration's callous disregard for the judiciary in these matters, he should have had the slate wiped clean. I think the judge had the authority to do that, but didn't do it. So he's out. So it's kind of like a timid decision. So now he faces deportation. Let's not forget, this is a permanent resident of the United States of America. And basically, the administration's trying to retrofit every conceivable excuse. Anti-Semitism is a national security issue. Yeah. So, he's anti-Semitic. That didn't work. So now paperwork problems in his initial green card application. I mean, it's weak tea, John. I don't think any of it's going to work. But yeah, he's facing deportation. And I wanted to ask you about the chilling effect. I mean, I feel like a lot of this has to do okay, we know we're going to lose in the courts, but just by fucking with these people, the message is do you want to take this on for yourself? Do you want to oppose this administration? Do you want to back Israel? Do you want to oppose Israel on campus? And do you want to be smeared in the media and get dragged off the street by masked thugs, and then and have to hire lawyers and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe, if you're not a cause célèbre, to get out? Maybe it's, there are currently no real protests about Gaza going on.
No, that's right.
Not in the streets, not in summer sessions on campuses.
No.
This past, granted, we're in the summer now, but there was nothing going on in the spring. Up near me at Columbia University, I can walk 10 minutes to the spot where he was arrested, right? He was there's nothing going on at all. There's no celebration rally. Basically, the movement has really been crushed by this.
There is an ongoing small-scale demonstration in front of the White House over the last couple of days opposing an attack on Iran, which is great, but it's small. And then one of our viewers called me this morning to tell me that he was out there in front of the White House this morning, and he said that workers drove a digger right onto the White House lawn, scooped out a big hole, poured concrete in it from a cement mixer, and then planted a giant flagpole in the middle of the White House lawn and put a 25-foot flag up. Like there aren't enough flags flying at the White House. I have no idea what that is supposed to be. It's supposed to be some kind of message.
There's going to be 2 of these things.
What the fuck is that, Ted?
Trump, it looks, what it reminds me of? When you drive in usually the South and there will be a car dealership with the biggest flag,
giant flag,
ever seen in the world. And John, you travel a lot, and I want to really and one of the things I've noticed from traveling is there's an inverse relationship between democracy and flag prevalence.
Yes.
You don't see, like, French people don't hang the French flag, the tricolor, in front of their house. French people don't have the flag on, even right-wingers, they don't have them on their car. Belgians don't do it. Italians don't do it. They all have lovely flags. But, like, you go to China, man, you see a lot of flags. It's like any place where there's, a more authoritarian government tends to have more of these symbols of patriotism and nationalism. I don't know. I mean, it does seem like that's the takeaway, right? I mean, it's all about optics. Trump understands optics. It's in his blood.
Yeah. And we're going to be stuck with this flag.
And the thing is, if we ever get a Democratic president again, they're not taking that flag down. They can't.
It's just like Barack Obama being bullied into wearing the American flag lapel pin.
Right.
Back in the day.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a bugaboo of mine. That was during the Vietnam War. It was a sign of right-wing politics.
That's right.
It was something that, like, I'm not sure I don't think Richard Nixon even ever wore one. I'm pretty sure.
No, I think it was Reagan that started that whole thing.
It was during the Nixon years. There were very far right-wing people who wore those, but not opposite, like people who were to the right of Richard Nixon. It was considered like a silent majority kind of dog whistle. Yeah, when Obama started doing it, I was like, God, what an asshole!
Yeah, right. He buckled. I told you the other day. Every time I go to the post office to buy stamps, I say nothing patriotic. Give me like flowers or Pete Seeger or Betty White or something. I don't want any fireworks or flags. They're already everywhere I look.
Yeah, especially when you live in Washington. Yeah.
Especially. Oh my God. A couple of good questions from the chat about Palantir. We should talk about Palantir.
Okay, let's talk.
Let me find. Let's see. Yeah, Eric. Eric says, is the CIA now a public-private entity with Palantir? Yes. I hate to say it. Yes, it is. And not just Palantir. There are half a dozen.
What Palantir is.
Right. So Palantir was the first startup company that the CIA's venture capital arm invested in. The venture capital arm is called In-Q-Tel. It's Intel, intelligence, with the letter Q in the middle of it as an homage to Q from the James Bond movies. So stupid. And they were all so proud of themselves when they came up with it. Oh my God. Never forget it. So anyway, In-Q-Tel was created post 9/11 to invest in companies that were doing or could do very sensitive, very high-tech research and development work that could be adapted to intelligence use. And so In-Q-Tel didn't get a ton of CIA money at the beginning. It was just a few million, 5 million, whatever it was. It wasn't a lot. And now it is a multi-billion-dollar concern. And it's not just In-Q-Tel. I mean, it's not just oh my God. It's not just Palantir. It's also Abraxas, which is another one that went from a couple of guys sitting around smoking cigarettes, and passing the day. I mean that quite literally, to a multi-billion-dollar.
I believe you. It's like War Dogs.
Yeah,
that's a real story.
That's exactly what it is. It's War Dogs. So yeah, In-Q-Tel is sort of the tip of that investment spear, but it's worse than just Palantir. It goes much deeper than that. It really is a public-private venture capital situation now. Which
just makes it more sinister and more dangerous, and obviously less.
Because where's the oversight?
Right. It's
who's overseeing these people?
Right. Who are they? We don't even know. We don't even know who to oversee.
That's right.
Before we wrap it up with Khalil, what next? Does he get deported?
A federal judge ruled back in the beginning, 2.5 months ago or so, that Marco Rubio was within his rights as the Secretary of State to deport him. Now, there's no reason to deport him, but the judge hinted that Rubio didn't need a reason. He could just, have him driven to the airport and tell him get the hell out.
I hate to say it. That's my reading of the law too. I mean, the law sucks.
Yeah.
But that's my reading of it.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I hate to say it, but that's the case. Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess at this point, the smart move is, he's totally lawyered up to the gills. Just kick the can down the road, delay, hope that the political situation changes.
Yeah.
Then he and people like him are off the hook.
And it's possible that this could blow over. People have very short attention spans in Washington. If we go to war with Iran, people are going to be crazy busy on that, and they may leave the guy alone. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. I will say I feel like it's a troubling trend to target foreign students, especially foreign PhD students, for a couple of reasons. And I'm going to say this very selfishly. These are the best and the brightest. The best and the brightest who come to our country to learn. They are also prime targets for CIA recruitment.
Oh.
And so,
yeah, interesting.
If you're, let's say, I'm going to make this up. This is not based on a real case that I have any knowledge of. But if you are a Chinese PhD candidate, you're to study astrophysics. Oh my God, do we want you to work for the CIA?
Sure.
But more than that, we want you to get your PhD, go back to China, get a job in the Chinese government, and work for the CIA from China.
Or if you're Mahmoud Khalil, we want you to go home to Lebanon or Syria and report back.
Right. That is exactly right. So I think this policy is short-sighted.
That would be the ultimate deep cover, is if he was recruited now. You'll never be suspected because you're officially.
Because the Americans bullied him and threw him out. Yep.
Yep. Best cover ever.
Yep.
Fascinating. Totally. Well, John, shall we talk about Harvard? I mean, it's kind of related.
Yeah.
So this is we're talking about foreign students. Harvard University just won, I would say, a major ruling. A judge has said, actually, the administration cannot prevent Harvard from admitting foreign students. But that said, yesterday's New York Times, late in the day, media dump, reported that actually Harvard, which has been publicly claiming to be holding the line bravely for academic freedom, is currently negotiating with the Trump administration about basically trying to see if they can figure out a compromise. And the administration wants Harvard to, not be woke anymore, not admit, basically scrap all DEI, what they call merit-based. Merit is, of course, the most objective of all words, but admissions and employment policies. So it looks like, they may not have caved yet, but they're amenable to caving.
They're in the process of caving. Trump said this morning that Harvard smartly and rightly came to the right decision. So as it looks to me now, Trump won.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
That's what it looks like. So again, it's that thing where if you harass an institution or a group of individuals, I guess we've seen the same thing with these big law firms like Paul Weiss. They roll, or it just becomes such a pain in the ass to deal with the might of the federal government that they decide.
And it's unlimited budget.
Yeah. And the irony is, of course, not lost on me that Republicans and Trump have been complaining for years correctly. And they've had me at their side complaining about this, about the weaponization of the federal government. They even created a committee in Congress about
which has not done enough at all.
No.
Yeah. I got a call from that committee. I'm going to say 8 or 9 months ago. And they asked if I would be interested in testifying before the committee on how the government was weaponized against me. I said, absolutely, yes, I would be delighted to come and testify. And they said, oh, Chairman Jim, what's his name? From Ohio, Jim.
Comer.
No, that's the one from Kentucky. Jordan, Jim Jordan.
That's it.
He was aware of my story. He had seen it on some podcast. I said, yes, just give me a date and a time and I'll be there. Never heard from them again. It's like, come on, man. You guys want to tear up the Democrats? I'm with you. Let's do it. It was the Democrats that put me in prison.
So, but then nothing. Yeah. No, I mean,
nothing happened.
I feel the same way. Like if that committee, if some right-wing committee wanted to hear all about, my travails of the LA Times, I'd be happy to talk to them about it.
Sure. Of course.
I'll talk to anybody about it. I mean, I'll take justice served red or blue. Does not matter to me.
That is exactly right.
So, so I mean, I guess now the thing is, obviously, if you're a foreign student, you're not coming to the United States unless you're an idiot, or a Pollyanna.
Totally agree. Why take the chance? Why take the risk?
I mean, parents are telling their kids, like, it's a big world. There's great colleges and universities everywhere, many of whom are in English-speaking countries. You can go to McGill in Canada. There's places in Australia. And a lot of people don't even know. There's like, a lot of countries are very open to foreign students. I mean, like, for example, you don't even have to be a French citizen to attend college in France. For a very nominal fee, like $5,000 a year, an American can apply, be admitted. They send you to the college of your choice. They even they guarantee you that you'll be fluent in French by the time you get out. They have
man.
I mean, it's a beautiful thing,
I got EU citizenship for all of my kids. And so they're eligible to go to any school they want, anywhere in the European Union, and the fees are almost nothing.
It's a joke. Yeah. Well, I mean, compared to here.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember one time when the tuition in France went up a few $100 from like a few $100.
With protests?
Cities burned. I love the French. They're so great. But it's like, no, my son didn't avail himself of that. He has an EU passport too. And I was like, dude, go to France. It'll be awesome. But he's like, I don't know. And I was like, well, you'll come out speaking French fluently, which you should anyway, since you're a French citizen.
Yeah, that's right.
But
that's right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And healthcare is free. Yes, it is. Healthcare is free in Greece. Yes, I'm liking that very much.
It's not free in France, but it's nominal. You every time you go to see the doctor, let's say you're an American, it's and you live there, it's €8 each time.
Yeah. So. See, I broke my hand. My finger still doesn't quite work the way it's supposed to. There it is. It doesn't. Anyway, I had to get surgery on my hand. I had a titanium plate put in and 2 screws, and it cost €20.
Love that.
That was my out-of-pocket expense. It was €20.
Yeah. No, I mean, Mexico has a great medical system. I had a eye inflammation / infection thing from my bad attempt to surf. And I go in during a national holiday and on a Sunday. So it's like double jeopardy. And they had an ophthalmologist there, like as part of every specialty, right? Like you just go down the hall. She spoke pretty good English. And then she said, I really have to apologize because you're not Mexican. We have to charge you the foreigner rate, which was $12. And then she's like, and you have to pay, you're not going to get the free meds, but you just get the pharmacy's in the lobby of the clinic. And it was, I think, $6 something. Yeah. It was like, it's probably more now. It was a while, but still.
I told you when I went to Cuba 2 years ago, year and a half ago, one of the members of our group was bitten by a mosquito and she got dengue fever. And she had to be admitted to a hospital. Well, the hospitals there have, I kind of am. This is my girlfriend's dining room table I'm sitting at, and it's very Middle Eastern, very, very Middle Eastern. So she was bitten, and they assign a nurse to you, and the nurse just sits in your room for the whole 8-hour shift, just in case you need something. That's amazing. They gave her IVs and medicine because people get dengue fever every day in Cuba. And so she got out 2 days later, and her bill was $65 for 2 nights in the hospital. But because you're not Cuban, you have to pay cash.
My mom fell and broke her hip in Dayton, and Kettering Memorial Hospital, $24,000 a night for the room alone. Only the room, no medical care. You want medical care? Well, that's going to cost more. $24,000 a day. Kettering, Ohio's not that great. I grew up there, but yeah. Anyway, and same thing. My grandparents in France, they had home care attendants. Rather than put them in a nursing home, come to their homes, and they fed them, they cooked for them, cleaned their houses, changed their sheets, and hung out with them, basically about 14 hours a day. And it was free. It was paid for by the government, I mean, they can do it, and they still have a huge defense industry. And
sure.
Involved in countries where they shouldn't be involved. Not as many as us, though.
But wouldn't you rather have one more B-2 stealth bomber than healthcare, right? I mean, that's right. Our politicians tell us that that's the choice we've made.
Well, apparently that is the choice we've made. And before we get to Israel, and maybe we could just talk about that now. Let's do it naturally. I do want to talk about Jerome Powell. But let's talk about the state of the war. So where it seems now, I've read some reporting. We talked last time, and I thought this was fascinating. It's been what you told me last time has been sitting with me. It's both sides are kind of like they have a finite number of missiles, and the question is who runs out first. It's a game of chicken. But Israel apparently has a second problem, which is that they have a paucity of launchers. Is that true?
Yeah, it's true. And I'll tell you one thing that the Iranians have done that would never have occurred to me, that has offered them some success, is that they've focused very heavily on Haifa, of all places. Mm-hmm. And so there have been so many waves.
The target a little bit further away.
That's right. It's a little bit outside Tel Aviv. So it's the farthest that the Iranian rockets and drones have to go. Now, most of those rockets and drones are being shot down, but not all of them. And there's been serious damage to the port of Haifa. Well, if they keep targeting Haifa like this over and over and over and over, not if, but because they've targeted Haifa like this over again, the Israelis have simply run out of surface-to-air missiles to shoot them down.
Is it because most of the air defenses were around Tel Aviv? Is that
exactly Tel Aviv and Jerusalem?
Haifa's a softer target.
Yes.
Also,
Haifa's
psychologically, having been to Israel, I mean, Haifa is a beautiful city. I mean, I think it's the prettiest place in Israel. And I would have said the Golan Heights, except that that's not really in Israel. That's occupied territory. But Haifa is it's got to kind of hurt the Israeli soul when they see Haifa getting blown up.
Yeah, I think so. Samantha asks a good question. Is it true that Iran shot down that fighter jet? Do we believe Iranian claims? I actually did believe Iranian claims at the beginning, and I don't now, because there's been no attempt at all by the Iranian government to exploit this for propaganda purposes. If you shot down,
at least of the wreckage,
or at least we saw that one shot that had the fuselage with the Star of David on it, and the Israelis said, "Bad AI image, never happened," and it looks like it never happened because the Iranians haven't said, "We've got the pilot, we're debriefing." Well, at first they said him, then they said her. They haven't said anything about any debriefing or about talks to trade the pilot for peace or whatever. There hasn't even been a conversation. I'm thinking that it didn't happen. Yeah.
So,
Jen, it's terrible when we need a doctor and you get nonsense like that, isn't it? Wrong strength of medications to go with the other med. Oh my God.
I mean, this is the way it is here. I mean, when I was driving a cab in the 80s, it was like when I was desperately poor, and I had an accident, and it was so bad I rolled the taxi several times and totaled 3 cars. Right? Like,
oh my God,
so bad. Not my fault. Someone cut me off, and I hit a Ed Koch era pothole, and the axle broke. And
oh my
New York
God.
in the 80s. Anyway, the guy across the street, a parking lot attendant, saw it, called 911, and said, "No rush. No one could have possibly survived."
Oh my God.
That's the state. And when the cops came, they had me get behind the wheel, and they said, "Oh, do you notice anything different?" And I said, "Yeah, the steering wheel is really high." And they said, "We see that in fatal car accidents. People literally push up the steering column so hard." And I'm like, "But it's attached to the engine block." And they're like, "Yeah, you get."
Oh my God, Ted.
Anyway, long story short, broke my wrist, skull, back of my skull, and my knee, my right knee. I didn't know it because when the ambulance showed up, they said, now bear in mind it's 1985. They said it'll be $195 for the ride to the hospital, so maybe $600.
$195.
Just for the ride to the hospital. And I was like, well, I don't have that. I don't have it. I didn't have a credit card. I didn't have the cash. I just don't have it. So I didn't know that I'd broken anything, but everything hurt. And I only found out a year later that I had broken all this stuff when I got a job that had health insurance. I went in for a physical. They x-rayed me, and they're like, "Did you know that you broke this and that?" And it was like, why didn't you go to the doctor? I'm like, because I live in fucking America, and America fucking sucks. That's why.
Yeah, that is exactly what's wrong with our system.
And it's worse now because the cost.
When I had that blood clot last year, I went to the hospital in an ambulance, and it was $1,800 just the ride to the hospital. $1,800.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you have insurance, it might be okay, maybe.
No, that I have insurance. That was with the insurance.
That's with the insurance. Mm-hmm. I was a few years ago. I had a hernia operation. I'd been through hernia insurance hell, so I called the insurance company. I had my approval code. I went in. I had everything all set, and I knew how much I was going to have to pay, and I was like, all set. I'm literally down to wearing one of those undignified frocks where your butt is hanging out of the back, and waiting there for surgery, to go into surgery. I'm in the prep room, and they come in and they say, "Oh, Mr. Rall, actually, they made a mistake, and we're going to need another $4,000." And I'm like, "Okay." And they're like, "We need it now." And I'm like, "You need it now?" I'm like, going in like 45 minutes. "What happens if I don't do it?" "Well, you can get dressed and go home." And I'm like, "So I just live with the hernia?" "Yeah." I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but a hernia ultimately can kill you if you ignore it. And so, I was lucky. I have, and I was like, "Okay, please go to my locker and get my credit and get my wallet and pull out my American Express card, and I will pay you." And they were like, had to do a payment plan. I'm like, you realize this is not a medical, operation. This is a finance operation. Yeah, honestly, having worked in banking, bankers are more merciful. Bankers are more likely to work with you to make things, to figure it out. It's deeply wrong. Luigi Mangione, he brought attention to this, but the problem exists. Problem's just as bad as ever.
Mm-hmm. It really is. It really is. When I got in an accident on my Vespa back in 2017, I was in intensive care for 8 days, and just those 8 days were $75,000. And then I was in a regular room for 3 more days, and then I had 6 weeks of a hospital bed in my living room. So altogether, it was about $100,000. That's when we were still at Sputnik, and I think I paid $8,000 or $9,000 out of pocket, which is still a huge amount of money. And it took me almost a year to pay it off. But, otherwise, what do? you do what a lot of homeless people do. You just die in the waiting room. You know?
Well, speaking of homeless people, don't forget that practice that might be happening again, but for years was happening in Los Angeles, where homeless people would go to the hospital. The hospitals did not want to treat them. And so they basically put them in a van and then dumped them on the streets of, in downtown Los Angeles, in the area known as Skid Row. And literally you'd see homeless people discharged from the hospital wearing nothing but those frocks, in some cases still attached to an IV drip.
Oh my God.
And even the LAPD, who are not like the kindest, gentlest souls always, were just, outraged and couldn't believe that the hospitals were doing this. This went on for years. And then ultimately there was a state AG or inspector general crackdown, and they had, oh, sorry, what do you want us to do? I mean, and I kind of understand the hospitals too. I mean, it's a shit show for them too. It's the system. The whole system sucks.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And they tell us, and Adrian is saying, as a Canadian, this is hard to imagine. Yeah, Adrian, they're constantly telling us that it's hell up there in the Great White North. That if you need an operation, there's a long wait. You can't get in to see a doctor. You can't get any experimental drugs. Blah blah blah. I don't see how anything could be worse than this system.
No,
honestly,
nothing could be worse.
John, I think we'd be better off with a completely free market system. In other words, you just pay cash. There is no insurance. I think then you'd have some competition in the marketplace. If it was basically like Afghanistan, it's like you'd have some doctors who are like, I can get more business if I'm a little cheaper. You'd have, it probably wouldn't be as pricey.
I agree. I think that's exactly right.
So
sickening. Yeah, thank you, DJ. Yes, I agree.
Here.
Thank you.
That's long overdue.
I'm working hard, man.
By the way, I mean, this is a meta thing, right? But like your pardon, which hopefully is in the works inside the administration, the rolling back of sanctions against Russia. How much of this things not happening quickly that Trump said would happen quickly is a function of policy disputes, and how much of it is a function of just an administration that's got way too many pots on the stove?
Yeah, I think Donald Trump seriously underestimated the potential of a resurgence of neocons because now they're not so frightened.
Well, he hired them.
He did. He hired them. Yeah, number one.
Personnel is policy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then when there are high-level aides like Tulsi Gabbard arguing that we shouldn't attack Iran, he just says, she doesn't have any experience. Thank you, Marble.
Marble keeps tipping $4.99.
Thank you very much, Marble. Appreciate that very much. Yeah, in the beginning of the second Trump administration, I was like, okay, listen, he learned a lot of lessons from the first 4 years. He learned from his own mistakes. He appointed better people this time. And by and large, knowing what we were going to get, they're better than they were the first term. But he seems to have been played by Benjamin Netanyahu and by the neocons that he surrounds himself with. Now we're getting ready to jump in with both feet in this war with Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, I can't believe I'm siding. We said this the other day, Ted, with Marjorie Taylor Greene, but I'm with Marjorie Taylor Greene on these issues. And then, thank you, Jay French. We got John Fetterman there, who has no idea what party he's a member of, doesn't care who he's offending, the people. And I want my $50 back, Fetterman, by the way, if he's listening to this.
He's out shopping for a Prada suit, no doubt.
Yeah, no doubt. Or Prada hoodie, at least. Thank you, Jack. Thank you. So, I don't know. I'm not optimistic right now. I told you a few minutes ago that there are these ongoing demonstrations. They're small-scale demonstrations in front of the White House. Actually, I have something important to tell you about that. So my friend is Iranian, and she was at the White House to protest the other day. Mm-hmm. And there was a guy there holding his phone like this, like talking to everybody, holding his phone. So he's clearly, obviously filming everybody. And he's speaking Farsi, but she said with a thick Hebrew accent.
Oh my God.
Uh-huh. And he was shouting, nuke Israel, death to Israel, things like that, just to see if he could get people riled up. And she shouted at him, "Why do you speak Farsi with a Hebrew accent?" And she points at him and says, "Mossad." And then he sort of ran away, and that was the end of it.
Oh,
awesome. But that's what's going on right now.
Wow.
Just like at the agency, when I was at the agency, they always warned us that anytime you went to a think tank event, anywhere in Washington, the IRGC was there. And they were taking down names, they were taking pictures, they were making notes about who said what and who asked what question. Well, the Israelis do exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing.
And of course, then when right-wingers in the media here say that if anti-war protesters cover their faces, they're somehow acting badly. They're just trying to protect themselves from exactly this sort of thing, and facial recognition software and having their faces. By the way, this goes back a long time, John. I have, a lot of friends who go to protests very frequently, and going back 10 years, there were drones following protests and photographing attendees at these protests, presumably operated by local police, but local police have these national databases where it's like troublemakers are all fed into that. I mean, it's extremely dystopian. It's a minor thing, but maybe it's not. Tulsi Gabbard really did kind of make a strong move against the neocons by issuing a public video, calling them warmongers who were trying to bring about World War III. And now she seems like she's on the way out. Is she about to be shit canned from the Trump administration? I mean, I don't think she's going to be around another week or two. But
I have to agree. I hate to say that because, man, I had such high hopes for Tulsi. And just as recently as a couple of months ago, we were talking about the possibility of her becoming the Secretary of Defense. She had been a Democratic congresswoman. She was a Democratic presidential candidate. And then she went independent and then went Republican and endorsed Donald Trump. And things looked to be going very, very well for Tulsi Gabbard. But she is a woman of strong beliefs. And that's what attracted me to her.
Yeah.
Was that she didn't care who she offended. She believed what she believed and she stuck with it. And I had great admiration for that.
She doesn't fit into a box.
She doesn't fit into a box. And I'm just worried that Donald Trump is buckling to the neocons. They're going to push her out. Hegseth is probably going to self-destruct anyway. And they're going to be replaced by other neocons. Remember, the position of National Security Advisor is essentially vacant right now. And Marco Rubio, if he's going to keep that position permanently, is a neocon and a war hawk.
A classic.
Yeah. DJ asks, my Iranian guest I interviewed the other day seemed to be more confident in the Iranian destruction possible. I think you're talking about Dr. Mohammad Marandi.
Iranian destruction of Israel, I assume, is what DJ.
Yeah, he was very confident that the Iranians were being underestimated. I'm less confident that he is, but the Iranians had zero rights under international law to initiate this bombing. No rights whatsoever. And I had to get it. I had to laugh. Say again. The doctrine
of imminence, right?
Right. Exactly.
Met here, right? It's something called the Caroline test, which goes back to 1837, which became a precedent under international law, where basically the British Canadians invaded the United States to take out a boat that was on its way, a ship that was on its way to full of Canadian rebels that were planning to overthrow the UK administered government of Canada, right? So this
Yes.
is very extremely esoteric. But anyway, but that's the test. And like the test is like, you're allowed as a country, like if you have enemy army massing on your border and you have intel that indicates they're planning to invade within a matter of days, you can attack them. That's allowed under, that's a preemptive war. That's okay. You're not allowed to say, what if Saddam Hussein kept WMDs, but we have no evidence to support that? And what if he took those fictional WMDs and attached them to a long-range rocket? And what if he gave one of those to Al Qaeda? Then we should, that would be bad. So we can bomb them now.
Yes. Ted, I just now got a push notification from the Associated Press. Listen to this story.
Okay, let's hear.
When Ellie, a British Iranian living in the United Kingdom, tried to call her mother in Tehran, a robotic female voice answered instead. "Allo, allo," the voice said, then asked in English, "Who is calling?" A few seconds passed. "I can't heard you," the voice continued in imperfect English. "Who do you want to speak with?" "I'm Alicia. Do you remember me? I think I don't know who you are." Ellie, age 44, is one of 9 Iranians living abroad, including in the UK and the US, who said they have gotten strange robotic voices when they attempted to call their loved ones in Iran since Israel launched strikes on the country a week ago. They told their stories anonymously to the Associated Press. They said 5 experts with whom the AP shared the recording said it is a low-tech form of artificial intelligence, a chatbot or a pre-recorded message to which calls from abroad are being diverted, but it remains unclear who is behind the operation.
Oh, well, it's not Belgium.
No, exactly. Yeah. It says Israel is the most likely that it's intercepting these calls.
Trying
to identify people in the West who are pro-Iran. Just like I said a moment ago with the guy speaking Farsi with a Hebrew accent, taking pictures of everybody and carrying a little Iranian flag that she said he was waving back and forth like this.
I wonder if anyone under 80 is affected by this sort of thing. Because I mean, like you and I are both, like many people, on Telegram. And like, I don't know about you, John, but I'm sure you get these. I get these all the time. Like, Becky, like, hey, are we still having lunch today?
Right.
Like, I don't know anyone named Becky. And it's like, it's been too long. All these sort of generic, reach outs. And, by the way, it's never a dude, ever.
No, always. Never. And they're always like AI gorgeous Asian girls. I always say the same thing. If they say, "Hi, is this Jane? Are we still playing tennis tomorrow?" Ellie. And I say, "Hi, Ellie. Yes, this is Jane. Yes, we're still playing tennis tomorrow. I can't wait to see you." And then they come back and they say, "Oh, I think I might have the wrong number." "No," I say, "you don't have the wrong number. Would you like to buy my crypto? Please send nudes." And then they cut me off.
That's so awesome. I mean, it's obviously a dude and like,
Oh yeah. Well, one time the guy forgot to translate it because I started saying like some horrible things. And so he was so mad that he forgot to translate it and he sent it to me untranslated. And I was like, what the heck language is that? So I put it into ChatGPT and it was Indonesian.
Oh, that's fascinating. I mean, yeah, I would not recognize that. Indonesian's kind of a strange looking language. It oddly looks like Turkish, sort of.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any relationship.
Yeah, I don't understand a word of it.
But yeah, me neither. I've been to Indonesia, but yeah, I don't. But that's hilarious. But I keep worrying, like someone, what if someone's got a jealous spouse and they see like, who's Becky? I don't know.
Yeah.
Becky, it comes up on your notification. Like someone's going to get killed.
Oh my God. Nick Otto. Okay, I was going to write you a comment, but I'll just tell you. He says, "I find if you bring up their mothers, they get very upset." Oh my God. I always end up bringing up the mother, and that is exactly when they get the most upset.
Balls deep in your mom all morning. I'm so sorry. Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh yeah. Boy, they hate that.
So is your mother still a prostitute?
Hey, let me ask you. So people are starting to say yesterday I heard it from Scott Ritter. listen, I like Scott. He's a great guy. I think his analysis is for shit the last year or so. Literally nothing that he says comes true. And I would say that to his face because we're friendly anyway. Yesterday he gave a talk yesterday in which he said unconditionally the United States will launch nuclear missiles at Iran in the next 2 weeks. Probably Saturday, he said, tomorrow. I'm like,
that's a huge statement.
Yeah, he's pro-Russia. Yeah. Like, what do you base that on, man? What the heck do you base that on? You can't just throw this grenade into the middle of the room. But he's been doing that a lot lately. And so people are very upset because they respect him when they see him on these podcasts. Like, does Scott have information we don't have? Is Scott talking to somebody we're not talking to? I just find his analysis to be very thin.
I mean, yeah, well, let's do our analysis, right, as a counterpoint. I mean, I think, look, Donald Trump is obviously between Iraq and an Israeli place, right? So
yeah, very much so.
So basically, and I still kind of, I think we had it right when we said that we were one of the first to say he had FOMO. You know, he hates to see anybody winning in any way, so much winning, you can hardly stand it. He hates to be left out. He hates it's like, oh man, it's like, Israel's our bitch. We give them $4 billion a year, but that should be our winning. So, transactionally, he's like, well, I didn't know that the Israelis were going to do so well early on. To which, of course, I would say we did really well. The British did really well in Afghanistan early on in 1837 too, but it didn't play out that way. Or 1839. Second reference to the same decade in the 1800s in the same show. But I don't think, but I think now, in the back of Trump's mind, maybe at the front now, is that thought, okay, but we were able to invade Afghanistan very easily. We were able to invade Iraq very easily. Invading is easy, occupying is hard. And, I will end up looking like a goat and not the greatest of all time, the old-fashioned goat, if I go with this. But he doesn't know what to do. So like Trump, I'm the same way. When I don't know what to do, I don't do anything. I just, I freeze and I just think about it and I wait for more information to wash over me or maybe an epiphany in the shower or something.
Yeah. Right.
That's what I think Trump is doing right now. He's waiting. He's just waiting for the sake of waiting. I don't know that he's really wrong. And the part that really makes me feel he has not made any decision whatsoever is that he hasn't been messaging about, he hasn't been.
That's a good point.
There's no lube here, right? I mean, it's basically, it's just like this war will belong, if he does this war, it will belong uniquely to him in a way that no other war has ever belonged to a president in American history. And he's got to know, like, there could be some really negative ramifications here geopolitically, not to mention pissing off the Chinese, pissing off the Russians, all things he doesn't want to do and shouldn't want to do.
And I'll add, too, and we talked about this on Wednesday, but I'll reiterate, in the run-ups to Afghanistan, Iraq, the first Gulf War, we send teams of senior diplomats, right? Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Deputy Secretary of State and Defense, National Security Advisor, to run to every American ally in the world and bring them into line. Right? And not just bring them into line support-wise, but try to get them to commit something. I remember the Greeks just kicking and screaming. They did not want to have any involvement in the Gulf War, and we beat them up over it. And so they said, okay, fine. They sent 6 ambulances, and that was it. But we're not doing any of that stuff right now. There's no diplomacy taking place at all. We're not trying to convince the Canadians and the Brits and the French and the Germans to come in with us. We're not even talking to them about this stuff. So that's
the only thing Trump is considering, to that point, John, as you talk. I think the only thing he's thinking is like, okay, I'll bomb Fardos for you. 30,000, I'll give you one 30,000 pound bomb.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes.
Nothing more. You can have, what is it, a GRU 57 or whatever it's called. You can have one of those. That's it.
And those don't go deep enough. Those are 200 feet.
Now, I don't even know. Let's just say he does that. How does that play? I mean,
I know, because it's an act of war. It's an overt act of war.
Sure, but a month later, does anybody care?
Right.
I don't know. I really don't know the answer. I mean,
Tulsi Gabbard just says she now believes Iran could produce a nuclear bomb in 3 weeks. Wow. What the heck is going on here, man?
Was she at the Victory Cafe saying that we've always been at war with Eurasia? We've never been at war with East Asia. East Asia has always been our ally. Yeah, well, Tulsi also, well, I mean, this is bad. This is a bad move for her. I mean, she's afraid to lose her job.
This is to keep her job.
But she's not going to keep her job. And in the long run, the smart move now, if you're just looking out for Tulsi Gabbard, if you're just on Team Tulsi, she should quit and she can become a renewed hero to the left again, which she stopped being when she went to work for Trump.
I agree.
I mean, I always had this, like, she has the opportunity, not quite to do what I think of, Colin Powell. My fantasy is that, Colin Powell in an alternate universe walks up to the podium, starts reading the speech about anthrax and all that stuff, then stops. The Hollywood music starts to come up. He tears the speech apart and he says, they sent me up here to lie to you to prove my loyalty. But I am loyal to the American people and to the Constitution, not to George W. Bush. And then both parties nominate him for president.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
He has that up. Tulsi can't quite get that because she doesn't have his Colin Powell status, which is no one in politics has today. But she could do something close, though.
Wow. I'm so colossally disappointed. Well,
that's
and there it is right there. Wow. I am deprogrammed.
All right. Wait. Quick take on Jerome Powell. You wanted to talk about that.
Trump keeps threatening Jerome Powell, and Jerome Powell doesn't even change his resting bitch face that he always goes around with. The president cannot fire the head of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is a quasi-governmental organization, and the term is the term. Unless he is impeached by the House and convicted by the Senate for high crimes and misdemeanors, he cannot be removed from the position. And that's why, pardon?
He can't be doged.
He can't be doged. He can't be doged. That's why every time Trump makes a statement like this, Powell just ignores it. Because he's like, yeah, keep talking into the wind because I'm not going anywhere.
But Trump could try.
Yeah, he could try. Sure.
But it wouldn't work.
No.
But yeah. And of course, and just for people who've been following these things, the Fed has decided to keep interest rates steady. I think they were.
And that's what led to Trump's angry statement. And so I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the Post this morning said that one more Fed governor announced that he was supportive of a rate cut. So I think really this is what Trump is after, not necessarily to throw Powell out so much as to force everybody around Powell to switch their votes and then get a quarter point or a half point rate cut. I think that's where we're going.
Well, it looks like we're going to get the Fed has signaled that they currently intend to do 2 small rate cuts in the near future, maybe a quarter point each or an eighth of a point each or something like that. But
that's right.
But of course, you never know with them. They had been they reneged on a few rate cuts earlier, so they probably still think the economy is a little overheated, but they always think that too much, I think.
One other thing, too. Several of our viewers asked us where we get our news. And real quickly, like many of you folks, I read everything. So here's what I have bookmarked that I read every day when I wake up. And don't yell at me, please. because you have to know what every side is saying. I've got the
Absolutely.
Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, LA Times, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, CNN, Fox News, Associated Press, Politico, The Hill, New York Post. I read the Greek papers. You don't care about those. The Telegraph, The Guardian, the London Evening Standard, Raw Story, BBC, Al Jazeera, Al Monitor, Electronic Intifada, Consortium News, Real Clear Politics, Axios, Covert Action Magazine.
I have about 90% of that list in common with you, John, so I'm not going to replicate them. You can also throw in the Dayton Daily News, my hometown paper. I think it's always important to read some flyover papers, and then also French outlets like TF1 and so on, and those are very useful too. But yeah, I mean, basically, we live in an age where it's like living in the Soviet Union under, where you had to read Pravda and Izvestia and try to read between the lines and figure out what was true. And you get good at it after a while.
You do.
There's some
that's not it. That's just what I have bookmarked.
By the way, I do want to answer Nick Otto.
Oh yeah, please do.
I just voted yesterday for.
Oh yeah, good for you. Does Mamdani have a chance?
Well, he has about a 30 to 40% chance of defeating Cuomo at this point. The problem is the weather is working in Cuomo's favor. Early voting's currently happening. There's no voting on Monday, so there's today and tomorrow, and then there's Tuesday. Here on the East Coast, we're getting slammed by a heat wave. Temperatures here in New York City are expected to go as high as 105 degrees tomorrow and Monday. So people are being told there's a heat advisory, and people are being told to stay indoors. So that's going to depress turnout in a huge way. Mamdani's definitely got the momentum here. What's really interesting is it's mostly being driven by the opposition of the corporate media, like the New York Times and the New York Post, both ran anti-endorsements of Mamdani. Basically, like, we don't care who you vote for, just don't vote for Mamdani.
Don't vote for this guy. Yeah,
they didn't even go that far for Cuomo. They were like, well, he's a little distasteful, but we could see why you might want to vote for him. So I think Cuomo's going to win. I didn't rank him at all. I ranked Mamdani first, Lander, who's the former comptroller, second, and Ms. Adams, not to be confused with Mayor Adams, third. But that's where it is. He's an up and coming politician. I think he has a bright future. We'll see.
Very ballsy guy too.
He's not going to win this one. So all right, I think we're sufficiently deprogrammed. What do you think, John?
Yeah, thanks everybody for such a spirited debate in the comments. That was a lot of fun.
Indeed. All right. So we'll be back Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern time to be deprogrammed. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and like the show. Share the show. Really appreciate you being here. I'm Ted Rall. That's John Kiriakou. Take care and have a great rest of your weekend. And if you're in the East Coast, try to keep cool.